Four teenage killers reacting to a life sentence. The courtroom is silent, except for the ticking of the clock. Four teenage boys sit at the defense table, their hands clenched, their faces pale. They were once just kids, laughing in school hallways, scrolling through their phones, dreaming about the future. But now their future is gone. The judge clears his throat, voice heavy with finality. You are hereby sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The words hit like a gunshot. Teen 4, the youngest, gasps, his chest rising and falling rapidly. Teen 3, the hothead, slams a fist on the table, eyes burning with rage. Teen 1, the so-called leader, stares straight ahead, pretending to be unfazed, but his fingers tremble. Teen 2, the quiet one, lowers his head, as if he expected this all along. Behind them, their families sob. Across the room, the victim's family watches in cold silence. The guards step forward. The boys aren't just teenagers anymore. They are inmates. As the metal cuffs click around their wrists, a single thought runs through their minds. This wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. And now, there's no way out. Opening scene. The courtroom. The camera slowly moves across the courtroom, showing the tension in the air. The judge sits sternly, ready to deliver the verdict. The four teenage defendants sit at the defense table, their expressions ranging from nervous to indifferent. Their families sit behind them, some crying, others frozen in shock. Verdict announcement. The judge reads out their life sentences one by one. Close-up shots of each teen's reaction. Teen 1, the leader, stares blankly, as if he didn't hear it. 2, Teen 2, the quiet one, eyes widen, mouth slightly open in disbelief. 3, Teen 3, the hothead, jaw clenches, fists tighten, trying to control anger. 4, Teen 4, the youngest, tears well up but tries to hold them back. Immediate reactions. One teen mutters, "This isn't real. It can't be." Another shakes his head, whispering, "I thought we'd get a deal." Their lawyers whisper to them, trying to prepare them for what's next. The judge continues speaking, but their minds drift, muffled sounds like they're in a haze. Family reactions. A mother breaks down, screaming, "No! Please, he's just a kid!" A father grips his head in disbelief. Siblings look away, ashamed or heartbroken. Escorted out guards approach to handcuff the teens. One tries to resist, pulling away, but is quickly restrained. Another stares at the floor, too numb to react. As they are led away, they pass the victims' families, silent, staring, some crying. Final shot. The courtroom doors close behind them. The camera lingers on their empty chairs, the weight of their fate sinking in. Anger and rebellion. Opening scene, holding cell. The four teens sit in a cold, gray holding cell after the sentencing. Silence at first, heavy tension in the air. Then, one of them snaps. Teen 3, the hothead, explodes. He punches the wall, cursing, "This is bullshit. They set us up." Paces back and forth, yelling at the guards, demanding a retrial. He glares at Teen 2, the quiet one, accusing him. "This is your fault. You snitched." A brief scuffle. Guards step in, pinning them down. Teen 1, the leader, in denial. Sits on the bench, shaking his head. "We're getting out. Appeals take time, but we're getting out." Tries to convince the others they still have a chance. His voice is calm, but his hands are shaking. Teen 4, the youngest, breaks down. Starts hyperventilating, whispering, "Life? That means forever?" His mind races. He pictures birthdays, holidays, his future disappearing. "I can't do this, man. I can't." He backs into a corner, covering his ears, as Teen 3 keeps yelling. Teen 2, the quiet one, finally speaks. After taking everything in, he calmly says, "We killed someone. What did you think was going to happen?" The room falls silent. The weight of his words settles in. Final scene, reality setting. A guard unlocks the door. Time to move. They hesitate. This is real now. No more courtroom, no more lawyers. Teen 1 clenches his jaw, trying to stay strong. Teen 3 glares but follows orders. Teen 4 hesitates, then wipes his face, swallowing his fear. As they step into the hallway leading to their prison cells, the door slams shut behind them. Breakdown and regret. Opening scene, first night in prison. The 4 teens are locked in separate cells. The prison is loud, metal doors clanking, distant shouting, guards walking by. The reality of life in prison starts hitting them one by one. Teen 4, the youngest, breaks completely. He sits on his bed, knees to his chest, shaking. Tears roll down his face as he stares at the ceiling. He whispers to himself, "I want to go home." Flashback to his childhood, his mom tucking him in, playing outside. He covers his face, sobbing quietly. Teen 3, the hothead puts on a front, but cracks. He paces in his cell, punching the wall in frustration. This place ain't gonna break me. But later, alone in the dark, he sits on the edge of his bed, gripping his head. Flashback to the crime. He sees the victim's face over and over. He suddenly yells out, punching the wall again, but this time, he sinks to the floor. Teen 1, the leader, feels the weight of his choices lying on his bed, staring at the ceiling, lost in thought. Flashback. Him telling the others, "We got this. Nobody's gonna get hurt." His hands shake as he remembers how wrong he was. He exhales deeply, clenching his fists. What did I do? Teen 2, the quiet one, shows true guilt. He sits by the small window, looking out at the prison yard. His face is blank, but his mind is racing. Flashback to the courtroom, seeing the victim's mother crying. He whispers to himself, "I deserve this." Tears fill his eyes, but he doesn't wipe them away. Final scene. A shared moment of silence. The 4 of them lie awake in their cells, staring at nothing. The prison sounds fade into silence. One after another, they close their eyes, but none of them sleep. The weight of their life sentence has fully set in. Facing prison life opening scene. Entering the prison. The 4 teens, now wearing prison uniforms, are led through the massive gates. Other inmates watch as they walk in, some laughing, some sizing them up. The guards give them strict warnings. "You're not kids here, you're inmates now." The doors slam behind them. Teen 4, the youngest, feels overwhelmed. He looks around, terrified. Everything is bigger, louder, harsher. Older inmates whisper as he walks by, smirking. His hands shake as he follows the guard to his cell. Flashback, his mother's voice telling him to stay out of trouble. Sentry, the hothead, tries to act tough. He walks with his head high, trying to show no fear. An older inmate bumps into him on purpose. He clenches his fists but doesn't react. He knows he can't win this fight. Once in his cell, he punches the wall in frustration. Teen 1, the leader, tries to keep control. He looks at the other 3, silently signaling them to stay strong. A guard hands him a prison rule book. He barely looks at it. Inmates stare at him, some testing him with small talk. He keeps his guard up, but deep inside, he knows he has no control here. Teen 2, the quiet one, observes everything. He doesn't say much, but watches every movement around him. Notices the different prison groups forming, gangs, loners, targets. Flashback, the judge saying, "You will serve life without parole." He closes his eyes for a second, then follows the others into their new reality. Final scene. First night in their cells. Each of them sits on their small beds, lost in thought. Prison sounds echo, metal doors slamming, distant arguments. Teen 4 whispers, "We're never getting out, are we?" No one answers. The camera zooms out as the lights go out, leaving them in darkness. A montage of their new prison routines, waking up, eating in silence, walking in the yard. The 4 teens are no longer new. They're settling in, but in different ways. Some are adjusting, while others are mentally breaking. Teen 4, the youngest, slipping into despair. He barely eats, barely talks. His eyes are empty, He's completely shut down. One day he gets a letter from his mom, but he doesn't open it. He just stares at it, then places it under his pillow and turns away. Teen 3. The hothead, fighting to survive. He's constantly getting into fights, refusing to back down. One day, an older inmate warns him, "You keep this up, you won't last long." But he just spits blood and smirks. "I'm not scared." Later that night, alone in his cell, he wipes his face and exhales shakily. He's terrified. Teen 1. The leader. Trying to adapt. He starts reading books, trying to keep his mind sharp. He begins listening to older inmates, understanding how to do time. Flashback. The crime scene, the moment everything changed. He sighs deeply, realizing this is his life now. Teen 2. The quiet one, finding redemption. He starts writing, letters to his family, even to the victim's family. One day he finally sends a letter. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm sorry." He watches the sunrise through the prison bars, whispering, "I did this to myself." Final scene, a glimpse of their future. Teen 4. Curled up on his bed, completely lost. Teen 3. Staring at the ceiling, his fists bruised. Teen 1. Reading, trying to stay strong. Teen 2. Writing another letter, accepting his fate. The prison lights flicker off. Their lives continue, inside these walls, forever.